We are live.
Are we live? Oh.
Hello, everyone. We hope you're doing well today and hope you've got lots of questions, crafting questions.
Yeah, we are excited. Yeah. We have lots to come for you. We have so much planned and we probably won't even fit it in, but we'll try.
We will try our hardest. I can already see a few questions down there that I'm rearing to answer, but we're going to go through our own sort of presentation discussion first, and then we will get to your questions later. But keep dropping them down there, and we will get to them when we reach the time to get to the questions.
Exactly.
So I guess we should introduce ourselves first.
Of course, go ahead. Go for it.
Okay, so my name is Izza. I go by Evil Clever Dog on Twitter and Instagram. I guess it's sort of my cosplay name. By accident, it's my cosplay name. I am a set and costume designer for theatre and film, and I've also been cosplaying for like over 10 years, many years, like 13 years or something. And I mainly specialize in armor builds, which you can see a little bit of behind me. And I also do some like sculpting and mold making. So that's something I'll be talking about today. And yeah, I just love cosplaying ladies who wear armor.
Oh yeah, I mean, definitely.
Yeah.
My name is Katya from Katya Fern on Instagram. I also work in TV and film. I did some wardrobe department last year, but I mainly work in the locations. But I've been cosplaying since 2014. And yeah, just been loving it ever since, doing a lot of big armor builds now, pushing myself and doing more comps. So that's where we are at.
And I know we've mentioned specifically that we're both very into armor, but we will talk a bit about sewing as well. It's just that's sort of both of our focuses, so we wanted to really go into that in detail. And I can see the questions that have already been dropped are relating to armor, and, sort of foam and wobbler and materials like that. So
exactly. Yeah. So we'll start on that. But we're going to kind of take you through the beginning process. So once you've picked your character, where do you go from? So like the whole planning stage. So how do you start when you've got your character? What's the first thing you start on?
Hoarding reference images.
Yes.
Everything I can get, I want. I always want reference images, front, back, side, close up of absolutely anything I can get. It is a lot easier nowadays than when I started.
I know.
You have like video games like Horizon Zero Dawn and Assassin's Creed Odyssey that have photo modes, so you can go and take the reference images yourself of, which I did with Horizon Zero Dawn with my Aloy cosplay. I literally just went and got the outfit in the game and just went to like as neutral a background as I could find and just photographed it from every angle, close up on every bit of armor, because the armor in that game is so detailed.
It is really detailed.
How about you?
You need it. Yeah, I'm the same. I will go Google images, and even when I did my Harley Quinn Kai Arts cosplay, I went to like an unboxing video because it's a figurine and it's so expensive I can't afford it right now. I went to like an unboxing video and a guy was just showing it, so I literally just screen capped every single turn and he was turning her arm and things, and that is how I got every single angle. So it's really important you get, like as you said, front, back, side, close-ups, detail shots, from top, like bird view, and like under as well, so you can literally just get all of the accuracy bang on.
And that's a really good point actually about figures, because there are some costumes. It's not a costume I've made yet, but the Nightingale armor from Skyrim, for example, like
that's true.
Skyrim itself, like the graphics are a little bit outdated now, and it didn't have a photo mode, and a lot of the settings in it are very dark, so it's actually quite difficult to get good screenshots of costumes, especially a costume that is mostly black and grey. So there's a beautiful figurine of the Nightingale from Skyrim, and I just went and looked at screenshots of that online. I was like, if I ever do it cosplay, I've just got those saved for future reference if I ever get around to it.
True. Yeah, figurines is definitely, and even if you can see them in person, say you have a store around you, definitely go have a look, get some free ones from there. You know, it's really about finding what you have around you.
Yeah, like get the Blu-ray or DVD of the movie, and just screenshot it yourself if you haven't got enough good references.
You can't go on Netflix, so if you can get hold of the DVD or something, then do all the screenshots from there. 100%.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you can store your screenshots on apps as well.
Yeah, there's a very good app called Cosplanner, which I think we both
use.
we
both use that, yeah.
Which is very useful for, you can store your screenshots in it, you can use it to budget, so you can sort of list individual items, whether you need to buy them or whether you need to make them. And you can also sort of track your progress by percentages, which is quite helpful.
Yeah.
Track like the date when you started, the date when you finished, how much money you've spent.
Yeah, exactly.
What cosplay contests you're entering, even.
Yeah, like everything, all the details on there. It gives you budget, like how much you've spent, how much you overspent or underspent. And it's just a great way of just keeping it all tracking and keep you going as well, so you know what you've done and how much you have left to do. So it's a really great looking progress.
There's also something I think that can be quite important, especially I think for more complicated builds, is sort of doing like a breakdown or a sketch of the costume and how it's going to fit over you. You don't have to be like an amazing artist. You don't have to feel under pressure for this to be something that you're going to like show to other people. It's for your reference.
Exactly.
But like, for example, when I've done like my big Transformers builds, or when I made the Doomslayer armor for Bethesda last year, that armor is huge, and it was also not being worn by me. I was making it to be worn by a male model who was like 6 foot something, like ridiculously tall, and like a bodybuilder. Like, he was absolutely hench. So I had to sort of, what I decided to do was to take like a photo of him, just sort of standing in as like neutral a position as I could get him to stand. And I just went on my tablet and like drew over him, sort of drew where the different pieces of armor were going to fit over him, how they were going to attach to one another, just to get an idea of, because it's such a huge build and it is not, you know, form-fitting and it's very complex.
Exactly.
To get an idea of how each piece of body and how the proportions were going to work, how the armor was going to attach to different parts of his body, how that might affect movement. So for example, if you have like a bracer and an upper arm piece, how is your connection move your arm, how you're going to move your legs, your shoulders, your head.
That's really true. And I feel like when you draw it, you spend time on all the little details that come in. So I just do like random little sketches of like the gun I was building, and it just helps you like know exactly what is there. So you're like, oh yeah, I never noticed that detail. But when you draw it, you're focusing on every single part of the costume. So that's like literally the first thing I do when I start something: draw it, sketch it out. And
I think also, drawing it can help me figure out how to make it.
Exactly.
Like, sort of looking at a photo, I can get an idea of what I'm doing, but like sometimes just taking the time to draw it and like physically create it with my own hands not in the same way I'm going to be creating it when I'm making the costume, but it is another form of that. It's like creating something from nothing.
Exactly.
So it does help sort of think about the different planes of the piece you're making and how they fit together and everything.
Exactly. And what it looks like in its planned state. You know, in like primary, when we used to make cubes, but when you unwrap it, it looks like a T shape, and then you put it together. So it's kind of getting it down to that position where you're breaking the layers down and how you fold up to do almost like a pepakura kind of style origami to get that all together.
Yes. And that also helps very much with sort of the next stage of costume making, which is patterning. Because when you're drawing your costume, you can also plan how you're going to pattern it. So how you are going to create the seam lines, which will create the shape of the armor.
Yes.
Or whatever it is. It can be for a sewn garment as well. Pattern drafting for soft garments is slightly different, but they're not too dissimilar from one another.
They're very similar, and this the same kind of thing. And with patterning with armor, we did briefly mention it last week, so you can go and check that video, which is on YouTube right now. But we'll touch on it again. So it's the cling film gaffer tape method, which I feel like everyone still uses, no matter how pro you are. It's just a great way of doing it. So it's
just easy and cheap.
Exactly. Yeah. So
if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Cling film against your skin, and then wrapping it in gaffer tape, and then drawing whatever you want on, your detailing, and then cutting it up. So when you lay it down on your foam, or I usually like to put it on paper to perfect the design even more, and then process that and place it on foam, so you have your exact measurements of your arm.
Yes.
For ready to build.
Yeah, and then sometimes the sort of masking tape or duct tape, tape patterns can end up being like a little bit messy around the edges because you had to sort of curve it around yourself. So you can also then transfer it onto paper so that you have like a clean version of it, and it's not, you know, wrinkly because
it more exactly. Yeah.
Wrinkly. And what it really helps with this stage is, like, I'll just show this armor I'm working on right now. It's not finished. I haven't finished painting. So this is my Tomb Raider, my Rise of the Tomb Raider cosplay that I'm working on. So if I just take the mantle off, you can see that the way this armor is like slightly form-fitting.
Yeah.
And so basically when I drafted it, I used my my duct tape mannequin, which is an exact replica of my body. So this mannequin is not an exact replica of my body, but there are seam lines, for example, in the center.
Yeah.
So you want to create sort of perfectly symmetrical pieces. You don't want to create two pattern pieces because they won't be entirely symmetrical. You want one pattern piece, which you create one side and then you flip it onto its back and then you create the other side so they're perfectly symmetrical. So there's a seam line down the center and then there's a seam line here.
Which is so hidden. I love it.
I've covered it up very, very well, I think.
Your filler is on point.
But yeah, and the seam line, what this line, the shape does here is it creates the curve.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like for women, and if you're doing female breastplates, that cut line down the bust is a really essential one.
Yeah, and it's also very flattering.
Very flattering. Yeah, it really like goes to your curves of your body.
Yeah, and similarly on the pauldrons, or sorry, spolders, they're not pauldrons. To get technical about armor for a moment.
Exactly.
Similarly, there is a central piece here, and then these two pieces are the same pattern piece. But you can vaguely see, just because it creates a slight ridge, where those seam lines are and the curve that they create.
Exactly.
Like, that's what you want, because if the armor is flat, it's not going to look realistic.
Exactly. It's very true. Seam lines and everything.
And no, this is not an IKEA rug. This is faux fur, which I and then backed with fabric, and it's just attached by two poppers, and that's the fur mantle.
So perfect. I love it.
Thank you.
Green. Ooh, excitement. Yeah, pattern is something I never like. I never really enjoy the process because that's your foundation. So if you don't get that right, then it's really, you have to absolutely nail the patterning piece. Otherwise, your whole thing will be thrown off. But
yeah, I actually do quite enjoy patterning. I think because I started off, my sort of artistic side started off with drawing. I just see it as like a form of drawing, and I quite enjoy it.
Yeah,
I understand some people find it quite tedious.
It's I'm like, I want it pretty now. When is it going to get great again? Yeah, very true. And then we have materials, which is a whole spectrum. There's so many materials you could use for your cosplay, but we both mainly use foam as our main materials. Would you say that?
Yeah, I think so. I use a lot of other materials as well, but usually with armor builds, usually those materials are there to supplement the foam. So for example, the fur or something like leather or even chainmail. I've got piece here where I've used chainmail for this, the backing on this helmet. So the rest of that is foam or insulation foam. But I use real chainmail to do the back because it looks best.
I know you can get a foam chainmail now, which is really exciting. And I really want to try that. Yeah, that looks really cool.
Because then it won't be heavy.
I know. The weight of it all. That's why, like, foam is a really lightweight material, and you can start off like this is just offcuts from craft foam, which just come in lots of different. This is where you might want to start with something like craft foam. But the thing is with this, it tears really easy, as you can see. But then you can go to something like more heavier foam. So these are really denser foam. This is actually the new CF.
Ooh, 150.
150, even denser than polypod. As you can see, this will not rip. It's very, very dense. So these are the difference between the different foams you can use, and this will have much more stable. You can heat it up with a heat gun and just bend it to where you want. But having like more dense foam is definitely something essential.
And I think there's sort of different places for different types of different thicknesses.
There is, exactly.
Like that thin 2mm stuff, I wouldn't make a breastplate out of that, but these thin details here, they're all made from 2mm because that creates a sort of nice slight addition to the costume without overpowering it. But then the main bulk of it is made from 6mm because that's a bit sturdier, without being too bulky for the type of armor that it is, which is slightly more form-fitting.
Exactly. And I think foam gives you a slightly more flexibility than something like Warbler. So you do have that little more flexibility with foam. But Warbler is like one of my favorite materials. I have made so much. It comes in a load of range. This is like offcuts from the normal Warbler. We've got Black Warbler. And this is something that I never finished, but like a little like breastplate out of white. And then you can form things like, this is my Dragon Queen. So this is a Warbler. And what you do with this is, you know those little like Christmas ornaments you get, like those see-through baubles. Yeah, that's the word. They come in two, and then you just heat the Warbler over these baubles, and that creates like the base of your breastplate. And then I just form these all with like a long toothpick, just go underneath and shape it with a heat gun. You can make all sorts of things like the Mara crown. This is also Warbler. So it's really robust, and that's not going to break anytime soon. So it has that really strong aspect, and it's very great to work with a heat gun. So I absolutely stan Warbler so much. Also make like little hand. This is like, you know,
I know what costume that's from.
Hey, you do that costume. I do love Feora so much. But you can create so much, and this is really great. That's just something that's just going to stay on, and this hasn't broken at all. It's really, really robust. Try not to punch anyone when you're like this.
I can imagine for finger pieces that's so great, because the problem with finger pieces is that if you're trying to pick something up or touch something, you bend the foam.
Exactly. I always like to cut out a little hole so I can touch my phone, which is probably really like I can actually like text my friends like, where are you? I can Sharpie that black. So that's a tip if you
and then never find them anyway, because you never find them.
Exactly. I'm like, oh, I anyway. Warbler is a great material.
I mean, both foam and Warbler are fantastic. They sort of have like different purposes. I think I've ended up mainly using foam just because I find it so versatile.
Exactly. Really
like I've used it to make, you know, armor of all different kinds. Like this is from my Cassandra cosplay, and it's more sort of like Corinthian, like ancient Greek armor. Then I've got like silver armor, and I've also got, you know, you can also make very organic looking things out of it. So this is the Eclipse mask from Horizon Zero Dawn, and this is meant to be just carved wood, so you can make it look like sort of really organic materials as well. And I've also made it look like like tree bark and leather for my Cassandra cosplay. My Horizon Zero Dawn cosplay is also like another type of metallic finish, very different. But again, it can do all these different things, and it's very versatile. The Warbler also has a lot of versatility to it as well. It's just not something I'm as like versed in as you are.
Everyone's different. It is great. They both have different priming processes as well. So you do prime them differently. So with Warbler, you can either use PVA glue, just like normal wood glue, whereas for foam, because it is flexible, the pieces that are flexible, you would want to use something that is like a flexible primer. So I'm not sure what you guys have in your country, but we have Hex Flex.
That's my fave.
Exactly, from Polyprops, which is absolutely amazing. There's Flex Bond in America. So having that flexible primer, which will allow when you start creasing or you have things where it kind of creases, it will just protect it so much more. And for travel, it is fantastic. You know how you just run things in the car.
And also, like, definitely seal your foam. Like, foam won't even really take paint very well if you don't seal it in the first place. So not only are you setting yourself up to have a paint job that might flake off, it's also not going to look very good, frankly. So definitely seal, prime and seal your foam. And another cool tip about like foam, and I don't know if this applies to Warbler as well, but you might be able to tell me. If you have properly primed and sealed your foam before and after painting it, if it does get creased, say you like pack it up in a suitcase to take it to a convention, it gets a little bit squished, or someone like knocks into you on the convention floor, you can just like take your heat gun with you, even maybe a hairdryer that has quite a hot setting, and just blast it for a few seconds, and it will literally like make the crease disappear. Up to a certain point. If you've like thrown it down the stairs, it might not work anymore. But those sort of like slight creases and dents and dings and stuff that do happen when you've been wearing a costume for a while or transporting it, you can get them out, which is very good. I don't know if that's the same for Warbler.
Warbler, no. If the Warbler creases, you can heat it up and just keep forming it. Like you can just, like if I wanted this slightly more bent down, I could just heat that up and bend it down and it will stay in the exact position I put it. Whereas foam might just be a little more, I might have to back it with another piece of foam.
Yeah. I've just seen, oh, sorry. Did I interrupt you?
I'm reading that as well. I saw it.
Yeah, I've just seen Abdullah say that foam is more available in Qatar than Warbler. Unfortunately, most, if not all, Warbler is sold online. That's absolutely fair. We can focus more on foam then, if that's the material that's more available in Qatar and other Middle Eastern countries. Another thing I just thought of off the back of the thing about the heat gun, to mention Warbler again, but it applies to foam as well. Just in terms of like keeping your cosplay safe and not ruined, I would recommend maybe not leaving costumes in cars in hot places overnight, or like for a whole day or something like that. Like even it can even happen in the UK and in America and France.
And it has happened.
And it has happened to people that we know. So yeah, like unfortunately, because both of these materials react very strongly to heat, and that's something that makes them very good and malleable for making cosplays, if you leave them in a hot place overnight, or even just like on a radiator or in a car or something, there's a chance it could warp it, maybe even melt some of it. So just a tip, please watch out for that.
Don't leave props in the sun as well. So I remember I was in Paris and someone asked for a picture, and I was like, yeah, of course. And then I left my Wonder Woman shield like just for like 2 seconds, and when I picked it up, it was warping in my hands. So try and leave your props in the shade or inside, because as soon as you go outside, no matter, you could have like the most beautiful build, you just don't want it to get ruined. So really like protect it at all costs. So we're just pre-warning, and I'm pretty sure it's hot in you guys' country as well. So
and similarly with like while you're still working on your cosplays in particular, because my studio is at the side of my house that faces the sun, which is very good for light, but also means that there's one table, one work surface where if it's a sunny day and the sun is directly hitting that window it's in front of, if I'm in the process of painting or sealing my props or priming my props, I will not leave them on that table, because if I, particularly with primer, sorry, I keep mixing up those two words for some reason.
I know.
If I leave it in direct sunlight, it can cause like little bubbles.
I'm just about to say that, bubbles will form. So just keep it in the shade. As soon as I see it starts to get sunny and it's priming, just move it in the shade.
I know it might be tempting to put it in the sun because you think it will dry faster, but it can actually cause like bubbles and stuff and ruin it.
100%, definitely. And I used to, I live in the country kind of ish. So there is constantly like leaves and lots of trees. So if I'm priming under a tree, for example, I do get little bits of the tree that get stuck within my primer. So just be careful where you prime and paint your props, because you don't want little bits, because as soon as you pick that up, the primer can start to peel off like the entire build. So just be really careful. Just go clean, dry place. It'll be great to prime your prop. Be careful.
Oh, the worst is if you're doing something outside and then little bugs get caught in it and like die on it, and then you're like, oh, I have to like stand this damage. I always feel so bad. I'm like, oh, you poor little guy. I'm just gonna sand you away. You're dead now.
You had a good. I mean, that's the best way to die, like being a cosplay. So, no.
Cool. So that was a cool little diversion, but something important, I think.
It is important.
Keeping your costumes safe.
It's very safe.
So yeah, with more.
Foam clay. Foam clay, which is a great. I have a little bit here, it's very empty. But craft clay from Polyprops. I don't know.
So Polyprops is a brand, a UK-based brand. We're not sure. Obviously, we can't know what brands are available in Qatar and other Middle Eastern countries. So we might mention brands we know of, but I'm sure there are sort of other alternatives, or maybe they ship to those countries. We don't know because we don't live there. But yeah, Polyprops is a very good brand. I pretty much
found them. It's great. But foam clay is absolutely great if you want to get into molding, and it air dries like foam, so it is really great for molding little bits here and there. And you can also use it as a sealer as well. I've done that before, where you just put a little bit of water, dab a little bit of water, and it literally turns into like a putty. and you can fill that way. And it's absolutely great because you can just get hands-on with craft clay and make little details as well. I really like it for detailing.
Yeah, I used it for my Cassandra helmet.
Yeah.
So this is mostly foam and craft foam, but then this little birdie up here was a combination of foam clay and regular foam, because this is a very like sculpted shape. And I was thinking of different ways in which I could do it. So like one possibility was sculpting it from clay, casting it in latex, and then sticking it on. But I decided that because it's a helmet, I didn't want to counterbalance the weight too much on one side. So I ended up
forward. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I ended up going for foam clay, and I think it had like a pretty good result. It's
great. It looks really organic as well. Like it's part of the helmet. It's not distracting.
Yeah, I'm really happy with how that turned out, especially because that was the first time I ever used foam clay, and it was a bit nerve-wracking because I was like, if I fuck this up, I ruin the helmet.
That's the problem. Oh god. Yeah. That's really good. It's not available in Qatar. Yes, there are always alternatives. Foam clay, craft clay. I also use silk clay, which is again like a children's kind of alternative as well, which is non-toxic. So that's what I started with. I made a Rita Repulsa stuff all out of silk clay because they didn't have craft clay at the time. So if you find those kind of things, go to little craft stores. Any type of putty kind of clay will just be ace, and it will.
Yeah, and look online as well. Like I bought.
Online is great.
Yeah, I bought like 2mm craft foam off of Amazon. I don't know whether online stores like that sell sort of the thicker foam, but that could be a possibility as well, something as simple as that. Yeah.
No, it is really great. And then we have, what else do we have with different kinds of materials?
Oh, base materials. That's very important.
Base materials is really important. Yeah.
We've also got, we've got like mold making and sewing to come as well, but I think let's talk about base materials because we've just come off of foam and foam clay.
Exactly.
So what we mean by base materials is stuff you're going to use as a structure to put your foam or warbler or whatever on top of. So this is particularly important for weapons and props and things. So for example, this is my Dawnbreaker sword from Skyrim. Hell yeah. So inside this sword is a wooden dowel up the length of the blade, because otherwise the blade would be incredibly floppy. And you don't want a sword that when you like brandish it, it just goes like way. It looks pathetic. So whenever I make a sword, I usually have PVC piping for the hilt of the sword, which I will then add in a connector so that I can take it out. So what that connector looks like is this. These are just like pipes and connectors that are usually used in plumbing. So I buy them from a local DIY shop, who are now very amused every time I go in. They're like, "What are you making now? I know you're not doing any DIY." So yeah, that's what the connector looks like. So it fits perfectly into this size of pipe. And any shop that sells the pipe will sell the connectors. So that black connector is inside there basically, and I've just hidden it by putting the foam on top of it so that you can't see it. And then up the length of the blade, I cut 2 pieces of the blade, one for each side, and then I cut in a trench by cutting in like a beveled angle up each length, right down the middle, and then I glue the wooden dowel into the trench and then glue the 2 pieces together. And then what that does is it creates that very slight sort of angle of a blade, where you have that very slight angle, and it also reinforces the blade and makes sure it's not going to wobble around or anything like that. So yeah, base materials are very important. You can also use them in your costume builds, especially if you're building like a big mech or a big suit of armor. Very useful. Have you ever done anything like that for a costume?
I couldn't bring it with me because my gun was like 1 meter too long. It's not going to fit in my hand. But PVC piping is something I use as well. It's really, really essential. It gives you that strong base. I also made massive fairy wings for my vignette cosplay, and that was with using fencing wire and then using duct tape all around them to create a frame. So creating like frames for things is really important. So you can get something like a really strong wire for that. So, but it also gives me that mobility so that when I move forward, my wings move forward with me. So really natural and not so stiff. So it has that natural wings. And things for like my Harley hammer, that's also like a PVC pipe that runs all the way all the way down. And then I have that little bit here. It's a tube that's ribbed. And then I cut that in half and then put them on for little detailings. And that PVC pipe runs all the way inside the hammer and then connects there. And it has a structure where I have like glued it all the way down and reinforced it on the inside. And then that's 10mm foam just to create that little roundness for the hammer. So the whole thing is hollow. And having hollow props is something that's really essential.
Trust me, no matter how strong you are, no matter how buff you are, you're going to get real tired of lugging that metal sword around all day.
Exactly. Little things. I can see like a little Wonder Woman blade there. That is 3D printed, so I don't know if you guys have access to 3D printers, but that has 3 metal dowels that run through it, and then is able to disconnect at the hilt for travel as well. So I think if you're thinking of traveling with your cosplay, think about how you can transport it. So splitting it up. So I've split my guns in 3 parts so that's able to travel as well, but also make it sturdy. So you can add magnets as well so that it can click into place when you re-put it on. So that's something that's quite essential and something to think about when talking about base construction.
Yeah, that's exactly why. I think I forgot to mention it. That's exactly why I make the hilt disconnect from the blade. So that I can fit it into a suitcase, basically, or a bag or something.
Exactly.
You also mentioned wire, which is a really good one. And I didn't bring this prop in here because it's sort of semi-setting at the moment, because I just glued some pieces of it together before I came in here. But I'm currently making... Wire is very useful as well for if you are creating like organic curved shapes from foam dowels. So at the moment I'm making the staff of Hermes from Assassin's Creed Odyssey to go with my Cassandra cosplay. And that staff, it's huge. I've made it disconnect into like 5 different pieces. It's taller than me. It's fucking but there are 2 snakes which curve around it because it's a staff of Hermes. It's that famous symbol everyone knows that was used by doctors. So the 2 snakes curved around a staff with wings on it, basically. And so for the 2 snakes, I got foam dowels from Polyprops. So they are basically foam tubes, solid foam tubes. And I sort of wrapped them around the staff. And then for the 2 bits with the snakes' heads coming off, I cut off an extra piece of the foam dowel and cut it in half. And like with the wooden dowel for the sword, I glued wire inside of it so that then I could bend the foam into the shape I want without having to sort of cut different shapes into it, which might make it look a bit more squared off. I wanted it to look like round and completely curved.
That's a really great. And if you want things to be adjustable as well, like in a helmet I have there's a back bit where, say, because it sticks up. So for travel, I've added wire in the back so I could bring that bit down so that it won't hit my suitcase or anything. So think about how to make it adjustable as well. So say you have something that sticks out, maybe have a wire. Again, on my shoes as well, I have like, that typical Aladdin kind of shape shoe at the end. I added wire where it curves up so I can always tilt wherever I want the foam to end. You can always play with it even while you're wearing it. Say you want higher. Again, for my Harley Quinn, I added wire at the bottom so I could push that skirt up or down any direction I want. So still, like while you're wearing it, you can still play with the shapes of it.
Yeah. I also used it for my Aloy cosplay. The bow has some feathers on it. And rather than using real feathers, of course, I was like, I'll make them from foam. But just because I looked at some real feathers next to it and I was like, this doesn't match because of the way I've done the paint job. It actually makes it look fake to have real feathers, which is an odd thing, but that is a thing that can happen.
I know, yeah.
So I first made them just from craft foam, and then the first convention I took the bow to, people were knocking into me.
Yeah,
I was constantly scared for these feathers. Yeah. So when I got home, I just ripped them off and I remade them with wire inside them so that anytime someone knocked into them, I could just put them back into place.
Yeah, I love wire. It's such a great, unique thing to use. So definitely look into that if you're making a cosplay. Yeah. We can talk a little bit more about just we're gonna hit on sewing really quickly. I know it's not both are super strengths, but it is a really important part of cosplay. Even if you're just a basic sewer, having some basic knowledge on it as well. Just touching quick tips as well. Always change your needles. So if you're sewing with leather and then you're going to sew stretch after, do not use the same needle for the same fabric, because that will ruin your costume, and it creates holes in your stretch fabric if you use a leather needle. So definitely make sure you switch up your needles. And if you're sewing leather, I recommend getting some baking parchment paper, put it on both sides, so underneath your fabric and on top, and that slides through your machine, because I've always had a problem with sewing leather, and I feel like that's something that's quite difficult, because your machine can just go and then just stop. I've broken about 3 needles doing it. So doing the parchment paper method has really helped to save it, and you just pull it away and it comes away at the end. Yeah. And you've sewn fur before, have you? Or
yeah, I mean, when I do stuff like this, I tend to, so the way I've done this, hang on, let me just
sew a backing onto it.
Come on. There we go. So the way I've done this is, so the most important thing with fur is when you're cutting the shape that you want, do not cut through the fur.
No.
Cut through the backing only. Otherwise, you're going to cut off the length of the fur that you want at the end that makes it look natural and organic. So what I did with this is I did exactly that. And then I backed it onto some black fabric.
Yes.
And curved the fur around it.
Yeah.
And then hand stitched it into place, because I was a bit nervous about sewing it through my machine. I didn't want any threads to go through. I wasn't sure about it. And then for me, a thing with faux fur that I hate is that it sheds quite a lot.
Oh my God.
So I'm going to paint over the hot glue eventually, because it does look quite messy. But I just then hot glued around where I'd sewn so that the fur won't come out as easily, because the glue is now gripping the place where some of the fur starts to come away from the backing anytime you cut the backing, regardless of how well you cut it. So yeah, that's my main tip for sewing like fur mantles.
And when you're cutting fur as well, so say the fur is here, try not to cut just straight forward. If you do have a cosplay where it is very, very straight, then yeah, of course. But I always like to cut upways, and this will give you a much more natural. It's like when you're cutting your hair, always go upways. It gives it more natural. And if you want to make sure you get less shedding as well, I just run hairspray at the end once I finish. So I brush it all down, run some hairspray, and that will stop the shedding going all crazy. So we'll keep it intact for a bit longer.
Yeah. And I think also something I find quite important is like what fabrics you choose in the first place.
Yeah.
So, for example, making my Miss Marvel costume, Kamala Khan, it's a very simple outfit. Like the design is quite simple, but I very much so a basic sort of principle of design, translating design from different mediums to other mediums, is that sort of the way in which superheroes in particular are designed in comic books. They are designed to look good on a page with traditionally a slightly, that cartoony style. So block colors, bold colors, vivid colors is what you want on a comic book page.
Yeah.
So think about like Superman's outfit, Miss Marvel's outfit, Captain America's outfit. You've got these like bright reds and blues, block colors that are really good. But then when you take that costume design and you translate it to, for example, a film or a cosplay, one thing a lot of costume designers tend to do is pick quite heavily textured fabrics. So if you look at, for example, Captain America's costume in any of the Marvel movies, or Thor's costume, they tend to pick, Spider-Man's costume is a very good one, because Spider-Man is head to toe red and blue. And on the screen, if that was a flat fabric, it would look terrible. There would be no texture to it. It wouldn't pick up the light well. So they always give him a really heavily textured fabric to go with it. Often it's this sort of web look, which obviously
like rivets all the way down it.
Yeah,
it's really beautiful.
And what that does is it creates interest in the fabric. And
detail is everything.
Yeah, it picks up the lighting. It looks good on screen. Another thing is that too much block red on screen in particular can be very overwhelming for the audience's eyes. So that's why, for example, when they made the Transformers movies, they made Optimus Prime more blue and red than red.
Yeah.
It's because too much red metal on screen would have actually been quite jarring, and they didn't make Ironhide red at all.
Breaks your eyes, yeah.
Controversially. So yes, when I made my Miss Marvel costume, I decided to pick a fabric that was quite textured for the blue dress, because it's just a blue dress. And then I used an iron-on gold vinyl to make the lightning bolt, so that when I pressed the iron in, it would pick up the texture of the fabric underneath it. So the gold also has the texture on it, and it just in photos it looks nice because it picks up the light in an interesting way.
It really does.
And it's more flattering as well, frankly, on a person's body.
It is great. And I love the little details that people have on it. Like if you look at the Superman costume, he's got these tiny little rivets on them, and a great way to do that is having, it's called, we have like 3D paint, which is, I think, a brand called Tulip. Puff paint, yeah, puff painting. And just puff painting, so when it dries, it doesn't go flat. It just stays its 3D texture. And that is a great way to add texture to actual costumes. I've done it before. Puff painting is an amazing way. Just to, so when you move, it just catches the light, and it's so much better than just a flat clothing. Just adding something, even if it's the same color, just a little bit more detail really just picks up on camera as well, especially.
And another thing that's great for that is weathering, although we are going to talk about that in its own section later on, because we're sort of going through the process of building. But in general, I just want to like say now, if your character is from any sort of setting like Assassin's Creed or like anything whether your costumes
even if it's clothing, even yourselves, like whether yourselves
because I like obviously, and everyone can do whatever they want with cosplay, but in particular if you're entering into competitions or if you're doing, you know, very intricate photo shoots, it sort of dampens the realism of the hard work you've put into that costume if you have like a crisp white Altair robe with no weathering on it. The man lives in the desert.
I know.
He runs up and down buildings all day.
Makes sense.
His costume would be dirty. Even just a little bit. Like
a little bit, I agree with that. You can do like, so we'll touch on weathering again, but even in your costume, and say you have a really dirty up costume and then your skin is completely clean, it's quite a bit like juxtaposition kind of thing. So maybe just dampen up your skin with a little bit of eyeshadow or something just to match how you're interacting with the environment that you're in. You know, you're in a desert, you're in a jungle, so you're matching the environment that your character's in. That's really important.
And if you want to see that done to perfection, Katya's Tomb Raider cosplay photos are like
so dirty. I love weathering so much, and we both love weathering. So Tomb Raider all the way. We'll touch on tools as well, like essential tools.
Sorry, we were also going to touch on mold making quickly.
Oh yeah, let's do that.
Before we move on to tools.
So much to talk about.
Sorry. There's so many things. By the end of this, we'll just be like going through it really quickly because we've taken too much time here. But oh well.
Mold making.
Mold making is expensive. Mold making is scary if you don't know how to do it.
Yeah,
it's not for everyone, but it can be very, very useful for your costumes.
It really can be.
I was very lucky that I was taught mold making professionally when I went to drama school to study theatre design. Not everyone has access to that, but there are a lot of tutorials online showing you how to do it. For example, oh my god, I can't believe I've just forgotten their name. So basically, like companies that make the materials post videos about how to use the materials on YouTube, and also some of the cosplayers and prop makers that we recommended last week also have videos on it. So the kind of thing you can do with mold making, to show you a simple one first, this is my mask from my Miss Marvel cosplay. So this is latex, and you can actually see it on the back because this is an old one that I haven't cleaned off. This is Prosaid. This is
I love
glue for your skin, basically. So what I would do is I would put the glue on my skin and on the mask, and then I glue it to my face, and then it perfectly form fits to my face. And lots of superhero masks are designed that way. Obviously, the characters in the paper comics don't have to think about that, but
no, because it's magic; they just stay on.
So the way I made this, it's quite simple actually. I'll start here. So this is a face cast of not me, but an actor I worked with a few years ago where we needed a face cast. We thought we needed a face cast for him, and then we ended up not needing it. So I had this unused, basically, left over. Actually, it's quite bright. I don't know if you can see it. There we go. This is James, everyone.
Hi, James.
So what I did was, even though this isn't my face, technically what you really want is a head cast of yourself. But I haven't got one yet. I haven't had the time to get one, and whenever I did, I was ill, and I didn't want to have a head cast done while I was ill. So whatever. Yeah. So what I did was, you can actually see the outline of it, where I drew the outline on his face of the mask, and then I sculpted it in clay on there.
Yeah.
And then from that, I took this mold. This is all in plaster, by the way. I took this mold, which is the mold that I create the masks in. So you can see if I put that in there, it fits in there perfectly.
Yeah.
So I take this mold, I brush latex into the mold. A tip I use is that with latex, I always dye it first, because latex always comes out this horrible yellow color unless you put any paint in it. So I literally just put in a few drops of acrylic paint, blue acrylic paint in this case, mix it in with the latex so that the latex itself is the color I want, so that if the paint does ever start to shed off, the same color is still underneath.
Yeah.
So I brush latex into the mold, do it layer by layer. You'd want to do thin layers at a time, and you can use a hairdryer to like quicken the process of drying.
Yeah.
And then when it's ready, remember also to use oh my god, I'm forgetting all my words right now. Mold release. You want to spray on mold release.
That's
the latex, it's slightly less important than with other materials, but still use it anyway. And then when it's ready, I just rip it out, and you have the mask. And I can like mass produce these quite quickly now, because I have this.
Exactly.
You know, molds don't last forever. I will have to throw this one away eventually, but then I can just make another one, and then I can keep making Miss Marvel masks. And so that's quite a small, simple thing you can do maybe for your first mold making project. It's just like a little, you know, Robin has one, Green Lantern has one, Miss Marvel.
Superhero.
Yeah. But then just to flex, you know. This is
we have an even bigger version.
This is my most recent mold making venture. This is Winston from Watch Dogs Legion, which was going to come out this year, but I think might have been delayed because of
I think everything's delayed now.
So this boy is also latex, and I sculpted him from clay. I also have a head cast of another actor. I really need to just get a head cast of myself.
You do, like,
but I have these head casts, and for stuff like this, unless you're doing like very specific facial prosthetics, like noses, eye ridges, you can use a head cast of someone else, so long as they don't have like hugely different sized head or facial features to yourself.
True.
So this guy, I sculpted it in clay, molded it in plaster, cast it in latex. It's like the good thing about latex is it's very flexible, and I love this guy so much. I wore it to Comic-Con, and everyone was just like, what the fuck is that?
What are you doing?
What are you doing? Because like no one's really seen this character very much yet. That is so if you want to do something like this kind of mask that's like a creature mask, latex and silicone are very good for that. So you're gonna maybe want to look into mold making.
Mold making is a really, really cool way of like upping, like making facial stuff. And I've also done like a Khal Drogo. He has this belt, and resin casting that. So making it out of clay. I don't have it with me at the moment, but it's making it out of clay, like a clay model, and then silicone, so casting it so you have like a rubber casting, and then filling that with resin, and then like you said, you can mass produce it. So once you've made one, so say you need to do like multiple gems or multiple pieces in your cosplay, make one master mold, and then you just keep pouring in that resin or pouring in latex, and you just keep making it. And that is an amazing way to mass produce parts of your cosplay.
Yeah, and you can also buy some generic molds. So when I was on holiday in Spain earlier this year, before we weren't allowed to go anywhere, I found a shop. I just found a random art shop, and whenever I'm anywhere, I always, if I see an art shop or a crafting shop or a fabric shop, I tend to go in and just see if there's anything that's different from what I can get back home.
Exactly.
And I found this shop that just sold like dozens of generic molds for buttons, gemstones, random little objects. So I just bought one of all of them because I was like, I'd never find these in the UK. Yeah, I never find them in the UK. And at some point I will be like, I need to make a gemstone. I bought that silicone gemstone mold in Spain. And I can just go and get that. Yeah.
It is really, really useful. I need to do more of it. Yes. So we go on to some tools.
Yes. And I think, should we start with sort of the sort of essential, what we consider like essential tools if you're just starting out, and then we can move on to other things.
Exactly.
So obviously we've talked about like stuff like masking tape and cling film. Like we've already talked about that, so we're just sort of considering that we've already.
It's more about like crafting tools.
Yeah. So in order to make anything with foam, you are going to need a cutting mat, some kind of knife or scalpel, a metal ruler, because you don't want to use you don't want to use a plastic ruler with a scalpel blade.
Exactly, because this will just help you. If you have a plastic blade, you can end up cutting the actual ruler. So this is a great way of just cutting all the way down your foam without having any issues. And always, I must say, sharpen your blades.
Yes.
Blades. This is absolutely will get your build so clean. Do it every time. And these are like snap-off ones. So you can actually break off the blade here, and it will just, you can end up using these. So all get replacement blades. So always have a sharp blade.
Yeah, you can buy knife sharpeners. I've got one. But I tend to
like kitchen ones.
Yeah, I do tend to mainly use scalpels, which have replaceable blades.
Exactly. They're great.
But basically, foam dulls blades relatively quickly, which you wouldn't think, considering how soft it is comparably, but it really does. Like cut 1 versus cut 20, there's a huge difference, and what that ends up starting to do is tearing your foam rather than slicing through it. So your lines aren't going to be neat, and then when you glue them together, you're going to get like weird ridges and stuff. So make sure your blade is sharp.
Your blade is sharp. Very, very sharp.
Yeah. And for gluing, hot glue guns are great. Definitely have one. But for the bulk of your gluing, you're going to want to use some kind of contact adhesive.
Yeah. Just like this one. This is Fix and Fix, which is my favorite one at the moment. Just if you have contact adhesive in wherever your country you're in, have a look at that. It's much hot glue is just, it breaks really quickly, and it's not the best thing. It's messy, but this is also non-drip, so you don't have to worry. It is quite toxic, so make sure you have your mask, which we will talk about.
It's the next tool on the list.
Yeah, next tool about the mask. You can smell this, and it's closed. Like
exactly. Really, and another good thing for that is that it can dry out the glue can dry out quite quickly. So don't leave it with the lid open. No. Also, the fumes are bad for you. If you have pets, do not use it while your pets are in the room. Use it in a well-ventilated area, even with your mask on. And when you're done with it, I tend to wrap it up in cling film and then put it in a sealable plastic bag, like, like a sandwich bag type thing.
Away.
And then put it in a box. Just so A, it doesn't dry out, and B, so that the fumes aren't around. Both of those are important. But your health is more important.
And you can always decant it into like a squeezable tube, which I want to do eventually with this, and that will help you just get a really thin like line and things as well if you're gluing really small things.
So the reason contact adhesive is so good is partly the reason it's so good is the reason it's so toxic.
Exactly.
It's very strong. And when you use it, you're going to want to apply it on both pieces of the foam that you're sticking together. Wait for about 5 to 10 minutes for it to get like a little bit tacky and like dry to tacky. And then get together.
Glue it together. Exactly. It's really essential. And always use respirator for it. This is more, these ones are more for when you Dremel. So if you don't use these when you spray paint or when you use glue, because that's not going to do anything for you. So this is more of a Dremel mask, and then you can always go up and have different masks. And there's also the one that you showed, which has the filters on it, and you change your filters as well. And also when you're Dremeling, you could get a load of stuff in your eyes. So I used to actually wear a shower cap when I'm Dremeling like a huge bear, because I look like, when we go out in quarantine and everyone's in those biosuits, that's what I look like.
Yeah, that's what I look like when I'm making cosplay. So when quarantine started and I didn't have a mask yet, I just wore this to the supermarket, and everyone was like,
everyone's a cosplayer. Like, you're for lockdown, you're done. But yeah, safety is really, really important. Like, don't skip these things. Like, it will cost you your health.
Yeah, definitely. Like, so the fumes from contact adhesive are really bad for you. You wouldn't feel the effects right away, but if you're using it all the time for years and years, the accumulative effect on your lungs can be really bad. Same for breathing in foam dust and spray paint over time. It's accumulative, and you want to preserve your health over time. You don't want to use it for cosplay.
Exactly.
And a good tip for these respirators. So I bought this on Amazon. I am failing to remember the exact name of the mask right now.
I think that's the 3M. Yeah,
it's 3M written here, but I can't remember the name of the company.
Oh,
but if you search 3M respirator on Amazon, I'm sure you'll find.
They are more pricey, but I do recommend it.
It's essential. And a good tip for these, so these have filters which you need to change out every now and then. So the recommended time, I think, is between like 4 and 6 months. You should be changing out your filters. So a good tip is to write on the filter when you put it on. And I think my screen might be flipped, so you might not actually be able to read the date. But yeah, so I put this on like last month or something. So I know this is good for a good another few months.
Exactly.
So I write the date on it, and then when I see it, it's been like 4 to 6 months time, depending on how much I've used it. I will change the filters out, and I tend to buy them so that I always have one spare set, so that I'm not having to wait and not use my mask in the meantime.
Exactly.
So I have a spare set, and when I put that set, I will buy another set so that I have a spare set, and so on and so forth.
You're always keeping on it. Very true.
So that's very, very, very important.
Very important.
Another health thing quickly, if you're using a heat gun, which I would consider another essential tool, or a hot glue gun, have some kind of like burn relief cream on hand. Just in case. I've burned myself with both.
Many times.
It's not pleasant. I one time got hot glue all down here. It was horrible.
It really
I was on a film set and I had to like go to the medic. So yeah, have like a first aid kit with you.
And just be careful. Heat guns get really, really, really hot. So as soon as you're done using it, like put it away from you. Do not keep it near you, because it can seriously cause some bad burns that I've had actually on my hand for years, and it's still not gone away. So make sure you really protect yourself. And also on mats as well, cutting mats for when you're cutting foam. So don't cut on your precious tables out there or anything. And make sure you have a cutting mat. And also I recommend a silicone heat mat. And this is for when you work with stuff like Warbler, because if you work on a cutting mat with Warbler, it will stick to the cutting mat. Otherwise, alternatively, you can use like petroleum jelly, Vaseline to lubricate, I hate that word, your surface. Otherwise, get a silicone heat mat, because it solved all my problems. So that's definitely something I recommend for Warbler work.
Yeah, definitely. And for Warbler as well as foam, I would personally consider a heat gun to be an essential tool as well as a Dremel. You don't necessarily need them like immediately to try it out, but I do think you're not going to really get the full experience of what you can do with foam without either of those materials. So a heat gun, you need it to heat shape Warbler, you need it to heat shape foam. What it's also good for with foam is what I'll mention with the Dremel. So a Dremel is like it's commonly called a rotary tool. It's like with Hoovers versus vacuums, Dremel is the brand. Rotary tool is the generic name. It's similar to those tools the dentists use. And they have like
bigger version.
They have changeable heads, so you can have a sanding drum, which is great for foam. It's commonly the tool I have on my Dremel is almost always the sanding drum.
Different sizes. You can always get different sizes as well.
But you can also use it as a drill. I don't own a drill. I just use my Dremel as my drill, even when I'm doing housework sometimes.
And polishes as well, like polishes. That help to like seal the foam, make it even more make your seam even more polished as well.
Yeah, exactly. So what that's great for with sanding, the reason we're talking about sanding foam is that when you make something like this helmet, you will have sort of these harsh edges on the foam, which don't look very sort of natural or like the real material. So you're going to want to sand the edges of the foam and give it that slight finish that just makes it look a bit more realistic.
Exactly.
And then that sometimes also makes sort of like what I always call the fuzzy bits on foam. Sometimes it just sort of like leaves behind little bits of residue. And when that happens, you just whack the heat gun on and it melts them away.
Or just flies them away. So oh, great, done.
I would consider Dremel and heat gun essential. I know we're saying a lot of tools that can add up to quite a lot of money. But you can get cheap ones and then replace them with more expensive ones later if you decide this is something you want to pursue like long term.
And it's something that's it's a base material. It's not like something you have to keep rebuying.
Exactly.
So it's something it's there and it's going to stay for a multitude of builds that you're doing.
I've had my Dremel for 4 years now, and I've still got the same Dremel I first bought. I invested in a good one, so I'm going to have it for several more years. I've had to buy one new heat gun because I was using mine way too much on a theatre project, and it like blew up in my hand. But and I bought a cheap one to start with because I wasn't sure if I really wanted one, and then that one crapped out after 2 years, and now I've got a new expensive one.
Sometimes it's worth it. So really have a look what's on the market for you. And also, I think another cool thing is like a wood burner, which is something people use to like burn details into wood, but you don't have to use it for wood. I don't know, people call it a wood burner, but it's like a soldering iron type thing. So you can also use this for soldering LEDs, which we'll touch on later. But this is also great to carve details into the foam. I love doing this. And it's something that with the Dremel, I feel like it's running so fast, you might slip, whereas a wood burning tool, you can really take your time, and it's like a pen almost. Time and control what you're doing, and it gets really hot again, so really be careful.
A very hot pen.
Very hot, yeah. Hot pen.
That's what it is.
Scoring things, yeah. You can also score by scoring into the foam and then heating that up. That's also a very neat way of scoring. Heat burner is also. I wouldn't say it's essential. It's something I got much later. But it's definitely like changed the way I do things.
Yeah, I got mine when I made my Aloy cosplay because I had to do a lot of organic looking materials. The bow is made of both wood and metal, for example.
So giving wood texture, like
it's very good for organic texture, and it can be very good for doing some weathering as well.
I always like battle damaging.
Yeah, like on my Cassandra cosplay, because that was the breastplate is meant to be sort of like hammered leather over metal. So to create a very different texture between the metal and the leather so that it looked like really realistic. A good tip for making leather actually is to like crumple up tin foil.
I love that.
Then flatten it out and then iron it. Then put like that and some fabric over your foam and then get a hot iron and iron it over, and that creates this like mottled natural leathery texture. But then to get into that even more, I then went in with a wood burner to make the leather look really worn down because it creates this really beautiful organic texture.
And you can even like get a really harsh sandpaper and just scratch a little bit into it to create that little leather fuzziness. It's
really good. Actually, sandpaper we didn't mention before, along with
sandpaper also.
You're going to want some hand sandpaper as well. For some things.
Is really
wood burner, I would say you don't need that right away, but it can be very good when you're moving into some more advanced costume making and you're more confident in your skills. Again, it can be something that when the first time you look at it, it can be a bit scary and you're like, oh, it gets really hot.
I know, it's burning my phone. Oh my god.
But it's great.
And it comes with different tips as well. So if you want like a special design or like a thicker one or a thinner one, or it has like some funky designs as well. So you can just press those into the foam to make amazing designs, which are really, really useful as well.
Yeah,
I love that. I think those are pretty. And also like sealers. This is the quick seal, which is a flexible sealer, and having flexible sealers are really essential if you have moving parts as well. So you might have a little gap where your seams didn't quite meet. You could fill it in with the craft clay we mentioned, or something like a sealer. You get those bathroom ones as well. There's bathroom flexible sealers as well. Just dab it in your seam, and then if you sand it a bit off, it will make
what I did on this.
Exactly.
There was actually, like, no matter how well you put your foam together, there will always be a slight line, I find. So I just,
anyway,
and now the line is barely visible. That's filler, sorry. It's called like quick seal and stuff like that, but like in cosplay, I would always refer to it as filler so as not to get it confused with the other kind of sealer. And the reason you want a flexible one again is because I did for a few years use like a generic filler, just the one that we use on like theater sets and stuff, just because I always had it. And it cracks.
It cracks like crazy. Definitely get flexible fillers. Is that all for the?
We've got some more materials, but it's sort of getting more into the painting, priming, sealing stage. Actually, just quickly, because I think we glossed over this and we did note it down, was attachments, like ways to attach different garments and armor pieces. So one of the like standards is Velcro.
So Velcro is my favorite. I use it for everything.
That's attached with Velcro.
Best.
And then I haven't done this yet because I haven't finished it, but later on I'm going to basically add, like the way this armor would be attached in real life, if it was real armor, is with leather straps. So I'm going to add fake leather straps on, but it's actually attached by the Velcro. And then another good one is poppers. So that's how this mantle is attached. There's a popper there, a popper on there. And then also the can you even see this? Yeah, you can.
Yeah,
Spolders are also attached with poppers. So if I just show you guys, this is elastic attached to the back of the spolder, and it's got poppers on it. The male and female. I hate that they're called that, but I despise it. And then there's another piece of elastic with a O-ring attached, which I've glued underneath there. And then I just like put that piece of elastic through, attach the popper on the other side. And that's a really easy way to attach pauldrons, spolders, and other kinds of armor as well. Do you have any other? I think the magnets are also one that
magnets. Yeah, I never really had like a great time with magnets, but magnets are really great. I know someone who did a Peach cosplay, you know, from Mario, and to put the crown on her head, she actually glued a magnet under her wig, so the crown just popped on. So that's a really, really great way of doing it. And if you have something like headgear, I always just do little elastics on the back of like head stuff. Things that are light, so I put it. I split my wig in half and then put the elastic underneath, and then put my wig down. So you will never. That's what I do with my Wonder Woman tiara. So you never see it. So the line actually runs like halfway through your hair. I know a lot of people just like bang it on, and then you have a line with the elastic. But always try to find ways of hiding it. Like if I have on this section where it's not coming down as easy. This is everything is tangled. Jesus, I'm just gonna leave the necklace on. But what inside? I mean, on the outside you can't see it, but if you look on the inside, I put a rim of warbler. So if I ever want to make it like this or like this, I can actually just heat it up and shape it how I want. And then I've also put some clips. So these clips clip into your wig, and these are really essential. So you can just slide that on. Wig, and it just stays on like so
that's so good.
And now it's attached to my hair.
I did something somewhat similar with my Aloy helmet because it's such an unusual shape. Sorry, you're not done.
You go on you, don't worry.
You're just caught up in your helmet. So this is my helmet from my Aloy cosplay. This is the Nora Lookout outfit. It's a very unusual shape. I've never seen a helmet like this in real life or in fiction, frankly.
Yeah, it's so cool.
It's very cool. I love it. It's got this sort of like bug-like shape to
it. It does remind me of that.
And so because it's an unusual shape and it's not form-fitting to my head like the Cassandra helmet is, what I did was I glued in a headband. From Poundland, just like a generic little girl's headband. So I glued that in so that I can't do it because I'm wearing headphones. But when I put it on my head, the headband helps hold it in place, so it doesn't like move around or anything. So what you're doing when you're making cosplay stuff and costume, you're making something that looks like the real thing, but it doesn't have to behave like the real thing. In fact, usually you don't want it to
functional at the end of the day. Like having really functional pieces. Velcro is definitely like essential. I'll get into more. This is like a gauntlet from my recent one, and where the LEDs are from here, you can't actually see. But what I've made is a little pocket where the battery hides inside as well. So you want to make it kind of seamless. And again, that's attached with Velcro. So that just really neatly hides away anything. So making sure that you have like seamless attachments. And all this on the belt as well. This is all Velcro. So when you're traveling, you just rip it off and you're like, oh, this is actually where I keep my batteries. I turned it into
nice.
So that's Velcro at the back of here. And then that will just go bang on. And then you don't have to worry about it. And it will not fall off. So it's the same with my skull as well. On this side, it just comes off. So that's that hand painted. That's the Velcro put on the back. And it just whacks on. And that is my favorite way of really like securing things. Like you don't really see it as well. It's very seamless, like from the side. So you'll never see that's actually on. And it's the same with what you did on the side of this breastplate. It's just with Velcro, same, so it just joins it. And I feel Velcro, even if I gain or lose weight, I can adjust it any way I want, and it will always fit me. So that's why I also really like using Velcro, because it's very, like, no matter, it's very sizable. That's what I
exactly. Yeah, I did with the magnets, with the, like hiding stuff thing.
Yeah.
I did a similar thing. The one time I used magnets successfully. Dawnbreaker again. So this does have LEDs in it. They are currently dead, and I've had no reason to change the batteries because I've not been wearing this costume to conventions since like last summer. But this piece removes, and then inside the light switch is hidden. Oh, that came on. It's very dim. It's very dim, and no one can see it. It's alive. So yeah, so I just like looked at the design of this design. Was very difficult to do this with because like the battery packs are hidden under here. This design was difficult to do it with, but it is possible even on a design where there's literally like a hollow piece. Exactly. I was like, where am I going to fit these wires? That you can always find a little place to hide.
Always find it.
Which actually reminds me something very important is finding if your costume does not have pockets or a bag or pouches. Find somewhere. Find somewhere. Yeah. On my Cassandra cosplay, I did it with she has a quiver on her back, so I just like made a little zip bag, a sewn zip bag, and like glued it inside the quiver. The quiver is empty of arrows. So I just like reach behind me and unzip that and put my phone inside and take my phone out.
It's all about being clever with where you hold your phone. I do this with every single cosplay as well. Like I always find nooks and crannies where I can, or even like make a bag that looks with the same materials as my costume so it blends in. So finding things like that, or I usually like stuff it down my like leg, what do you call them? Like leg braces, like
briefs and stuff.
Yeah, because there's usually like maybe a little gap. I just slide it in and no one sees it.
I guess it depends on like the kind of convention you're at. Like if you're at a convention where you're also like staying in a hotel nearby or the convention is in that hotel, all you really need is like your phone and your room key, maybe maybe a credit card or something like that. So that's quite good because that's like not a whole lot you need to carry on you. But yeah, for other things you might need to like incorporate like pouches and bags and stuff into cosplays.
Exactly. Very useful.
We can go on to questions.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, actually, because it's 40 minutes now. It's well that worked. Hey man.
We shot both of our Assassin's Creed cosplays. So hello.
So we might not get a chance to talk about painting, but
but we can briefly like we'll go with the questions anyway. So should we start on the questions? Yeah, I think we did answer quite a lot. We can start with the first one. What online resources do you recommend for wig hair? Do you make your own wigs or hair specific cosplays? Yes, this was actually a whole section that we had planned, but we don't have enough time for. I'm a huge believer in that makeup and wigs is so fundamental in making your transformation. I really believe it doesn't matter if you're a girl, boy, whatever, makeup, it really changes your face.
People of any gender should wear makeup when they're cosplaying.
Really, exactly. It does not matter. Body painting, like you could go into, I could talk about contouring all day. It's changing your face, like making your nose narrower, making the cheekbones, the highlight. It all adds to looking even more like the character. So sorry, I got really passionate there. What was the question?
It was about wigs and hair. But just to add to that quickly, because we're touching on makeup, that like I said, people of any gender should wear makeup for cosplay. I consider it in the same way as, actors of any gender wear makeup when they're on stage, when they're in a film. It does, like, even if it's just like powder to make it sure that your face isn't shiny in photos, like it makes all the difference.
Even just a little bit of eyeliner, honestly, it really does. You can get really, really cheap wigs on Amazon and eBay. I love to get cheap wigs and then transform them. That's what I always like to do. So I used Got to Be Glued hairspray. I'm sure we both use that. And that's a really great brand because it's almost like literal spray glue. So it's a great one. They have different forms of gels.
The gel for that is very good for like when you have a wig, say my Miss Marvel wig and my Cassandra wig, for example, the only two wigs I wear because I use my real hair for Aloy. Like the sideburns naturally will like lift away from my face, so I just like put a bit of that gel on my cheeks and then glue the hair to my face. And then it doesn't move all day and it will always look good and frame my face exactly the way I want it to.
It's so perfect. Even if you have anime wigs, like the spiking, so you get a teasing brush tease it, and then put some hairspray and just form that spike. That is the best way of making quick, easy, like anime type spikes.
Yeah. Foam versus warbler we kind of touched on already, I feel.
That's the quick fire question. Which do you prefer, foam or warbler?
Foam.
Warbler.
Oh no! According to the internet, we must fight each other now.
To the death. No, I love foam, I really do.
This is a good one because we didn't get to talk about our paint section. So what paints work best for different materials like wood, foam, fabric, etc.? Is there a single type of paint which is for everything? So even your bog standard acrylic paints are very good for pretty much anything.
Yes.
When you're doing foam builds, I've got some here as well.
Exactly.
These are slightly more expensive ones, and I'll sort of go into that a little bit. But like acrylic paint isn't known as being a flexible paint, but so long as you have primed and sealed your foam properly, acrylic paint will work absolutely fine. There is also a type of leather paint which you can use, and leather paint is intended to be flexible because it's intended to be used on leather. I personally haven't even gone as far as using that, and I still just use acrylic paints. Really cool. They're great.
Great. There's also oil paints as well, which is actually becoming one of my favorites to use. The difference between acrylic and oil, these are both black, by the way, is that oil has a long drying time. Like, I think it takes about 2 weeks to actually dry. You can work that with a sponge, which is like, I just get like an off sponge, I tear it off, dab it, and it kind of gives that, if you don't have an airbrush, it gives that airbrushy effect. You can ombre it. So go from like dark, so like where the darkness seeps in, you can really get in there and just blend it into like all the little seams and things. And it takes a longer working time. Whereas acrylic is great also, and it really gets into all those cracks and crevices, and then let it dry a bit, and then get a kitchen towel and just take that off, and it just becomes that really organic, dirty, quick drying. That's a quick drying.
Again, like we mentioned with fabric earlier, like always weather your armor because it's not going to look realistic otherwise. And in fact, like I always say, like layer your paint job. Don't just go in with one like silver color and expect that to look like real metal, because it's not going to. You want to like start with a black or dark base and then build up the colors to the lighter tones, and then you want to do black washes to shade it, and then knock those back by wiping some of it off with kitchen roll, like you mentioned, and then bring out those highlights again with dry brush.
Highlighting. It's just like makeup, really, and I absolutely highlight is fundamental. These are like little, they're not really powders, but they're these highlights that just kind of look like that. You dip your finger. They're kind of cream based. These are incredible. They bring out all the little highlights, and as you can see, like from here, you get those really nice highlights every time you turn. You always get these beautiful highlights. Always do a little highlight. You can do that. I've done it on, I go in with everything with highlight, and it just brings it to life so much more. Every turn you take, and I mean, this one doesn't really have highlight as much because it's a cartoon character. So I wanted it more flat based, but always like, this is all just weathering. If I didn't weather this, it would be so flat. So
exactly. Even with something that's like a cartoon character, you still want, even if it's more subtle, you still want it in there.
You still want that kind of weather base, even where you do your little battle damages. Like, get the black really in there, and otherwise, it just makes it look so much more real. That's what I'm
Yeah, absolutely. And something else I want to touch on, because I mentioned these being like slightly more expensive paints. Like you can use like the cheapest acrylic paints you want, and you can still get a pretty good effect if you know what you're doing. I do recommend this brand. I do not know, admittedly, if this brand is sold in Qatar, so I'm sorry if it's not. But so this brand is Liquitex Heavy Body Paints, and the reason these are so good, even if you can't get this exact one, you want this kind of paint because it's very high pigment. So it lasts longer, basically, because you have to use less of it, and it looks much more vibrant. Oh, it is available in some shops. Look for these paints. They're very
Liquitex was great. They also have a gesso, which is really great. Like, Liquitex is a really great brand.
Yeah. And so the reason I have 2 silvers here, and I've written cover and mix on them. So they have 2 different types of metallic paints that you're going to want to watch out for. So there's iridescent rich silver, which is this one I've labeled as cover. And then iridescent bright silver, which is one I've labeled as mix. And the difference between these 2 is, again, sort of like a pigmentation difference. So this is a higher pigmentation than the other one. So I use this one for dry brushing directly onto my armor. And then I use this one for mixing paint. And I have also sometimes used it for dry brushing. I used it a little bit for dry brushing on my Aloy cosplay because the armor is white. And it's very easy with white armor to make it look very like cartoony and flat. And I wanted to bring out lots of different tones. So because this silver is a bit like weaker in tone, I used this one, and just so it had like a slight sheen to it, but without being too overpowering.
It makes it look like the metal's being chipped away from your costume. If you have something that's really weathered, adding those little, with a really dry brushing those silver strokes gives it like the metal is peeling away. Like those brushes right there. And
so I want to show these in particular because people will be like, what's dry brushing? Fair enough. Like, so there are different types of brushes as well. So very important. So when you're dry brushing, you want these types of brushes that are sometimes called chip brushes or hog hair brushes. And they basically have
for the house.
And they basically have very, very sort of tough bristles. That's what you want. And you're going to want to put like a little bit of your silver paint on, wipe most of it away on a kitchen towel or something, and then you go in and dry brush, and you do it like very subtly, and that's the effect that you want. And for like base colors and black washes, just like either like a mop brush or like a flat but smooth brush will be absolutely fine. But yeah, oh god, we could talk about painting for ages. There's so much more to talk about. I could talk about
and spray paint is really essential. Spray paints are everything, just for a great flat base, and then you can go from there. So that's all for paints, because we could really talk about them forever.
Painting is my passion.
I know. You can also use acrylics on clothing as well.
You can use it to weather clothing,
and then you can use it on clothing. It's great.
And on leather as well. Like if it's not going to be, if it's not like a leather outfit, if it's just like little bits of leather, like straps and stuff, you can absolutely use acrylics on that as well. But you can also buy fabric paints and fabric markers for working with fabric as well. But that's maybe more for doing like patterns and stuff on them rather than weathering. But for weathering, you can use acrylic paints. You can also use like dirty down spray, stuff like that, which is like maybe a bit more advanced. It's like a theatrical spray.
There's so much you can do.
It's expensive, but there's lots of different options. Acrylics though are pretty good across the board.
Bog standard. It works. I don't have an artistic bone in my body, but I want to get some elaborate builds, which means hiring someone else to build for me. How should I determine how much it will cost to commission something? Do you do commissions?
I've done a couple of commissions for people. So I will say that with this question, generally speaking, you're not going to be the person setting the price. The person building the costume
will set the price for you. Labor and printing materials, like they will add that all up for you, and then pitch a price. Maybe you can find a way to bargain with them on it. But it's usually the person who will make it who will set that price for you.
I guess just like go in realizing that this stuff generally is probably going to be a bit more expensive than you're expecting it to be. I know some people get a bit disheartened sometimes. I'm not assuming this of you, person who asked this question, at all. Some people even get angry when they hear prices for like costume commissions and art commissions and stuff. Understand that this is possibly that person's living, and that they are pricing this according to their skill, their time, their effort, their training. This is something that people do like for their whole job, is building costumes and props. Not necessarily in cosplay, although sometimes in cosplay as well. It is a profession, and it should be treated as such.
Exactly. Yeah, I agree. What do you think of crosplayers in general? I will say I absolutely love cosplays. I think if you are, like gender bends, cosplayers, I've done cosplays in the past. I have cosplayed as a male before, not as much. Like I've done Noctis from Final Fantasy, some couple of anime guys. Like I love it, and I don't think there's such a stigma around it. Like if you love the character, it doesn't matter who they are, where they're from. You can cosplay them, and I absolutely love seeing them. I think cosplays are so creative. 100% dig them.
And I think cosplay, I know for a lot of people who are maybe like trans and genderqueer and non-binary, cosplay has been a way for them to sort of explore their gender identity. So I think it's fantastic. I know that some people aren't particularly fond of the term crossplay, and prefer like maybe another term that is not coming to my head right now, just because of the connotations with like cross-dressing and how that's been sort of used to sort of put down marginalized groups and stuff.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, like I cosplay whatever you want, honestly.
I agree.
Whether you're doing it to like explore your gender identity or whether you're just doing it because it's fun, like, and you love the character, like either way, like, yeah, cosplay should be about like doing the thing.
Yeah, just doing what you love. And there's so many epic male builds out there. I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to make like a big ass male armor one day. I don't know, like it's a great thing to do.
Yeah, like yeah, I've got like armor builds in mind that are technically male characters. I guess for some armor builds it's a bit easier like to like people won't always sort of look at your original like form and body if you're like fully masked and armored up, like maybe
you can't even tell like a lot of the time. You're like, oh, that's just a cool costume, I don't care who's in it, it's a really cool costume.
Yeah, but I think also like to touch back on a point we raised earlier with if you are cosplaying a character of a gender outside your own, I think makeup, it can be very important for that as well. Like transforming your face,
makeup.
Look at like the way drag queens do their makeup. You don't have to go as extreme as that, because obviously that is like a very particular form of makeup that's for a particular purpose. But look at things like contouring to create more masculine and more feminine features.
Yeah, you would have to contour from here and down. It's like a more masculine, and their eyebrows are more lower and bushier as well. So it's all about contour. Again, like you said, drag queens, great way to have a look at how they do it as well. Like there's some tips. Covering eyebrows as well. A process that is horrific to do because it takes so long, but I love doing it because you can shape your eyebrows so many different ways by doing that. So yeah, have a look at all those things. What are some of the most useful cosplay tools in getting me started on the cosplay? I feel like we've kind of mentioned.
Yeah, we've mentioned that already, I think. I think something we didn't mention actually is like sewing materials. Like you get some hand sewing materials and look into getting a sewing machine and an iron. That like for sewing, you need a sewing machine and you need an iron. You need to iron your seams.
Iron your seams.
Iron your fabric so that it's not creased. So
those really essential. I'm currently making a character that has a smoking weapon. Any advice on what I should use?
I have not done this before, but I have watched videos by other people.
So have I.
I know that Kamui Cosplay has done one. And Vixen and QGX have done the sword from World of Warcraft.
Smoking, yeah. There's you can use there's a type of vape smoke that people use within it, and it's really, really useful. Check out Willow Creative. She done amazing smoking stuff with, I think, some Pokemon Me Too thing, and that's a really cool way. There's a lot of people out there. There's someone else, Wayne's Workshop. He actually sells smoking like a smoke machine set, so you can actually just buy it already without having to make it. So check him out as well, and hopefully that would solve some of your problems.
Yeah.
Yes. Have you heard of R31 Studios? Yes. We mentioned him last week.
Yeah, we're big fans.
Fan. So yes, rep him. I hope if he's watching, we love you. What should I expect to pay to get started? Can I cosplay on a budget?
I mean, this was sort of the topic of our panel last week. It will be.
Cosplay is expensive.
Yeah, it will be expensive. But you can absolutely do things to cut that cost down. Some of the things we mentioned last week were, either like closet cosplays, like using things you've already got in your wardrobe and adapting them. Yeah, upcycling, using found materials, like I talked about how for my Sparky to cosplay for the big like power cylinders on his back, I just got like toilet roll tubes and wrapped them in foam.
Exactly.
You can use found materials, you can adapt things, you can go to secondhand shops and buy cheap clothes. Rather than sewing them from scratch. If you're talking about like making your own things on a budget, you can look into like going into a fabric shop and seeing what's in the clearance bin. Foam isn't all that expensive, to be honest. Like for how much you get versus the cost of it, it's not that expensive. And
100%.
we've sort of talked about some tools that are sort of like the essential tools you need to start with. So have like a cutting mat and something to cut with, and glue and a respirator, and you're good to go.
Exactly. And I feel like the more I cosplay, the more scrap materials I have. And the more I've actually just made builds 100% just purely on scraps. So if you said, like, I have a whole bag here of just leftover warbler, and if you want to make any details, oh, I just dropped my phone. If you want to make any details, you just heat up some of your scraps, and that's a really easy way of recycling what you've already had. So you'll just end up building up materials that you can, and you can actually make cosplays purely on your scraps.
Yeah, exactly. Always keep your scraps.
Always
keep your scraps. Warbler, foam as well. Like, I do every few months, I do go through my foam box and throw away some scraps, but I tend to keep things for a long time. I'm a hoarder. I keep things for a very, very long time, and like I keep like foam scraps bigger than the size of my hand. I tend to keep, and then I can use them to cut up like smaller detail pieces and stuff like that.
Exactly.
So yeah, there's a use for lots of things. So I tend to keep as much as possible. I once, like on my Skyrim cosplay, I used some leather that I'd kept since my first year of university.
Yeah, always weird things. They will come in handy. Like I hands down.
Yeah, absolutely.
What is your favorite cosplay that you have seen the other day?
Oh, that's such a good question. Oh my god!
Because honestly, this girl's amazing, and please go check out her Instagram. As soon as I saw her, I was like,
this sort of ties into the story of how we met but didn't meet. So at a convention in 2016 called LSCC, which no longer exists, we were both in the cosplay contest.
And the cosplay contest.
Yeah, we talked about this when we had our little like meeting about this.
We did.
So I saw Katya on stage in her Wonder Woman cosplay, which I'll probably say is my favorite of yours. I think, just because it was like seeing you in that cosplay, I was like, oh my god, that's amazing. That girl better win a prize. And then you did win a prize. I was very happy. But the funny thing is that I saw her, and I now know that you saw me in my Dragonborn cosplay.
And she won. She won. And I just kept thinking, like, oh my god, that girl is so cool. I like go up to her and talk to her. Like,
we were both like fangirling over each other from a distance, and then we never found each other again at the whole convention. But we found each other over Instagram later, and that's
I'm in Expo, and I think you were in your Dragonborn.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Oh my god, choosing your favorite cosplay is so hard. I love every single one. I would have to go. I love your Dragonborn. I mean, it's so epic. It's so cool. It's so cool.
Thank you.
When we took those photos.
Oh, but is it Wonder Woman or is it? Sorry, I never remember the character's name, but it's the woman from Superman.
Yeah, Feora.
Feora, yeah. Like, I love that armor build of yours, and that's the one that the first time we actually met in person, we took a photo together with you as Feora and me in my Dragon Ball.
I love that photo. Yeah, and I was like, this girl is so into badass girls. You know, and I love that. I'm always
another girl who does armor. Hell yeah.
Armor girls for the win. I love it. And you're Cassandra, boy. And then we did a shoot together. I was Evie Fry from Assassin's Creed.
Yes.
And she was from Cassandra, Assassin's Creed Odyssey.
Yeah.
I kept getting mixed up with the other one. Yeah. Oh my gosh. And then we had the most amazing shoot with like fog and.
Which we still need to get the photos back for. We need to phone that photographer because I'm mad that we don't have those photos. I need them in my life.
It was so good. Wait till we get them back because they're gonna blow my mind.
Yeah.
Fashion for assassin is like
Yeah. Armored ladies and assassins. Yeah.
Armored ladies and assassins. I feel like we're very similar. Like a lot of things that Isa says, I'm like, yes, I agree. Like I feel like our personalities and how we are, we're just very similar. You could be my long lost sister. I don't know.
Maybe.
Maybe in another timeline. Yeah, it'd be so awesome. Like all the cosplayers. I can't wait to see what
all your cosplays are amazing. All your cosplays are amazing.
Yes,
I only ever get to see them from a distance across the lawn.
Every time. Another life. One day we'll actually hang out.
Yeah, when this lockdown is over, we're actually going to hang out and do like a proper photo shoot together and stuff.
Yeah, we need to do that. Yeah, I think that's all the questions.
In the box, the questions and answer box for now, but you guys can throw more questions in the chat if you want, because we've still got some time.
Do we still have time? We've got all the times.
Oh, I think your video's gone.
Is it gone? Oh, we have 30 minutes.
We have 30 minutes. Okay, well, if you guys want to ask any more questions, you can, but maybe we could, since we do have some time left over, we could talk about some of the other things we planned, maybe?
Oh, yeah. Do you want to talk about, what did we miss? We hit on weathering, didn't we?
We did hit on weathering. I can talk a little bit more about painting and weathering. I can always talk about weathering.
I know, forever. Sewing. I want to hear more about sewing. This is more of a point. But do you know the way you can pattern sewing is the same way you can pattern armor? It's actually very, very useful. Cover yourself in the cling film gaffer tape method that we've mentioned 1,000 times.
Yeah.
And then just cut down the seams you want. You could make corset, you can make dresses, you can make tunics. Yeah. It's a really, really easy way. That's how, because I'm not very into like patterning, as I mentioned. For me, when I pattern clothing, that is how I do it. So
yeah, I do the same thing exactly. You can also go and find already made sewing patterns. You don't have to pattern absolutely everything yourself from scratch. Professional fashion designers and costume designers do like adapt already made patterns sometimes. Like it's not unheard of. So you can absolutely do that. Maybe not fashion designers. Maybe I shouldn't have said that. They do though. They absolutely do. I know they do. So something you can do is you can get like either go and find a sewing pattern that works for the costume you're making. It depends on what you're making. But sometimes you might be able to find a dress pattern or a coat pattern that straight up works and you can just go off of that.
100%.
Or you can take a pattern and slightly adapt it in certain ways. You can like take it in, you can like, say you want to make like, I don't know, a coat that you've got a pattern for a coat that fits for the top half, but not for the bottom, and you want the bottom to flare out more. Well, you can take the pattern for the coat on the top half and you can make that perfectly, but you can adapt the pattern so that you can add like more onto it or take some away in certain places so that you can create the look that you are going for.
Exactly, 100%. I really agree with that, and I want to get more into sewing because I think it can be really essential. So there's people who sell patterns, like you said. There's a Yaya Han bodysuit pattern, which a lot of people use. If you're making something really tight, she has a great bodysuit pattern for that.
Yeah, and I think also like, I think we mentioned this last week, but you don't have to go to cosplayers to find sewing tips. Exactly. There are lots of seamstresses and people who sew posting tutorials on YouTube. Sometimes I would even say like you might want to go to those preferably over a tutorial on cosplay, unless the tutorial on cosplay is of the exact costume you are making. Just because they're going to be talking in more general terms. And from that you can adapt it into the thing that you want if it's something unusual. And also, go to some sewing classes. I did it last year. I learned so much because I've got these like weird gaps in my sewing knowledge because when I was at drama school, I specialized in set and props. So the way they did it was that you specialized in one or the other, set or costume. And because I felt like I enjoyed painting and what I call the messy work a lot more. And because also when you're a set designer, you are qualified to design costume. You don't have to be able to make costume to design costume. And I wanted to be an overall set and costume designer. So I went with set. But that meant that I missed out on some sewing education that I could have gotten at uni. I just went and filled that in myself. I follow tutorials online. I went to some sewing classes last year.
There's so many great alternatives out there.
Someone's asked us, what was your most challenging build? Ooh.
Oh my gosh, every single one. No.
Every single one for different reasons, man.
Yeah.
Ooh. I can think of one that was pretty uniquely challenging though. But what about you? Have you got one first or?
I like literally running through all that. Challenging. I mean, they've all been. I think my latest build, which I just put out, which is my Caitlin Headhunter from League of Legends. I made a massive gun that in the game she's like a sniper, so she's got a really long range laser that shoots out, and the teeth at the end of the gun move. I never worked with LEDs, and I've never made mechanical parts before, so doing something new for me, I always want to push myself, always want to create something I've never done before. So like when I just getting like the LEDs, I know it's really bright in here, you can't see, but it does. There's a little like light up. Just getting that to like function the way I wanted it to, and that gun being 1.50 meters long is insane, and having it light as well. Getting into making the mechanical part where the teeth move, all manual. So I have no servers. It's just completely with wires, and it's really hard to explain it. There's a PVC pipe that runs through it, wires that attach that pull the teeth back. So when I pull the trigger, it pulls the teeth back, and then when I push it back, the teeth reform. So it's something that was really tricky to figure out. I had a deadline as well. So I was like, oh God. So anything with a deadline is like is really, really difficult, especially when you haven't done those things before. So say you've never worked with foam before, you know, worked with Warbler, and it's like your first time. So I think that was pretty challenging. Or my Rita cosplay, because that's the most accurate one I wanted. I have. So that was like huge. Anything huge, I would say, is super challenging. What about you?
So I've got two, but they're for very different reasons, and I think they're both important reasons to talk about. So I'm going to talk about both of them. So the first one, I would say probably my Aloy cosplay, and the reason for that being that the costume designs in that game, while incredible and some of my absolute favorite costume and character design in video games, hands down, the costumes are incredibly detailed, and the way they are designed is to be this kind of fusion of sort of trying to think of the right word, sort of like almost prehistoric fabric elements with very, very complex and detailed sci-fi elements.
Exactly.
So you have these two design elements working in odds with one another, which is very, very interesting conceptually, which was the main reason I was so drawn to it. But also it meant that I was challenging myself on a sewing level while also challenging myself on an armor level. Because as you can see from the helmet alone, like the amount of detail on here is so layered. This helmet is like 5 different layers of foam probably. And then on top of that, the armor is white, which I've already talked about is probably the most challenging color to paint.
Oh, I agree. White, because it can look quite fake. I think
it can look very, very fake, very cartoony, and I didn't want that at all. So I had to like very much experiment with the paint job and do like a lot of different trial and error of techniques, and I used stuff like a wire brush to get like little tiny details of scratches in there without it looking like bold and cartoony. And like I said, like that was the sort of, I think that was like the second cosplay I made after getting back into cosplay after taking a very long break. The first one was the Dragonborn. So it was like a very big challenge at the time as well, because I hadn't really been doing like a whole lot of sewing when I hadn't been cosplaying. And it was also, just like this huge detailed build. I'd never made a bow before, for example. So the armor is very intricate and complicated, and I really, really wanted to do a good job on it. So I spent a really long time on that cosplay. It was like a year or something, because I really wanted to get it right. That was the reason for Aloy, was sort of like detail and like challenging myself on multiple levels at the same time. And then the other build I would say is my Doomslayer, which I mentioned earlier. And the reason for that was because firstly, it's huge. It's a huge detailed build again. But also I wasn't making it for myself. I was making it for a model.
That's always tricky. And
I was making it for a model, making it on a deadline because it had to be ready by QGX last year. And it was going to be used in promotional materials. And I had to make sure and I was just like, I'm being paid for this, like I have to make sure it's good. And I was also making it sort of for like personal reasons. It was difficult to get done. It was challenging rather, because at the same time as making that, I was also working on this big like opera education project for like my real job. And so I was like 24/7. I was doing one or the other of these two things constantly for like 7 weeks or something. That build, I only had like 6 weeks to do it by the end because of stuff. It was crazy.
My heart is going just knowing, like,
I get heart palpitations just thinking about it. And I'll be honest, like I look at that build personally. I don't know if I should say this. I don't know if Neil, if you end up watching this, don't watch it. Like I look at that build personally, and I feel like I could do better. The only reason I couldn't is because of time constriction.
That build. Like,
I know what corners I had to cut to get it done in time. And I'm fine with cutting those corners because I do that in theatre all the time. You don't have time to.
You don't have time
doing this job professionally.
Like
that. Yeah, you don't have time to do everything to the full extent that you want to, and that is just a fact of it. But that's something I'm used to in theatre and film.
Exactly.
When it comes to cosplay, I take my sweet time, like I did with Aloy. It took a year to do it because I wanted to do it right. And I also had to take breaks when I was doing other jobs. And with this, I couldn't take breaks. I couldn't like leave it for a few months and come back to it. I had to cut corners that I'm used to cutting for work that goes up on a stage. And on a stage, you have the audience distance from, so you don't have to make everything look super good up close in theatre. Don't tell my other theatre I said that. Don't tell the director I said that. But it's true, like the audience are a certain distance away from the stage, and whatever distance that is whatever distance it has to look good from, basically. But with a cosplay, it's looked at very like up close and personal. It's filmed, it's photographed. So it has to pass that test, basically. So I know what corners I cut. And I'm fine with that because that's what I had to do to get it done. But yeah, I'm just like, if I had like all the time in the world to do that, I know what I would have done. So yeah.
Always things that we can change, but you know, it's too late. Katya, let's reveal your Wonder Woman half sword secret. Oh God. Right, I think I might have it here. Hold on.
Oh, this is great. This is great.
Okay. So
and we've got one more question after this as well, and then we'll probably have to wrap.
Yes. So for those of you who have seen Wonder Woman, if you've not seen it, please go watch it because it's amazing. Basically, the scene where she enters the gala, she's got a wonderful blue dress on, which I have made, never sewed a dress before. So that was the first go at that. And she's got a sword that goes down her back. And a lot of people think, okay, if she's got a sword going down her back, then is it going down her ass? Like, how does it work? What I did, this is a sword from Tip Top Workshop, and it is an entire sword, but I basically made it a little bitty one. And I just went, it comes in like 3 parts. So this is just the first part, and I glued it to the hilt, and I primed it and painted it. And then what I did, I added some gaffer tape and some bubble wrap in here. And this basically just slides down my back. I have a video on my Instagram highlights where you can check this out. Basically, this just slides with my dress, like where my bra is. My bra hooks it in, and so you only see from here up. So it looks like the sword is all the way down my back, but it's not. Which I'm pretty sure is how they do it in the film as well. So it gives you like illusion that the sword is like going all the way back. But yeah, that's the secret. I don't actually have, and when I actually went to Comic-Con, he was like, oh, you've got a sword in your back, the security. I have to take a look, and I'm like, are you serious, dude? Like, I'm not the one with this. Really? It's so funny. I think it's hilarious.
Yeah, I love that. I remember when I saw that on your Instagram and I was just like, galaxy brain.
Yeah, find out secrets.
Yeah. So the last question we probably have time for, just going back to hair and wigs, what's the best technique to dye and color synthetic hair? So a good tip I've seen, I haven't actually no, I have done this. Sorry. I don't usually do a whole lot with wigs. I hate wigs and I avoid wearing them if I can. That's why I use my real hair for Aloy. But this is hair of a sort. It's not wig hair. But so this crest for my Cassandra helmet was originally all red. The black pieces, I got pro markers or Copic markers. You can get them of different brands and stuff. I don't know what brands exist in Qatar. But yeah, they are basically like alcohol based coloring markers, and you can use those to color wig hair. You can use them to color these kind of things.
Like the roots as well. You can do it for root. There's also like inks. I've heard like people do it with inks. But if you want to dye like a whole wig, I recommend RIT dye. And that is basically you boil some water and then you put your wig in it, smash it or like stir it around for about 30 minutes. And then when you bring it out, obviously the darker you want the wig color, the more you leave it in for. And then if you want to just like, even you can even do ombre with it. So you can dip the wig in a little bit at a time and it will just gradually ombre. So check that out if you want to RIT dye for synthetic wigs. Yeah.
Oh, apparently we still have 15 minutes. Sorry, yeah, that's because we started a little bit late because of some tech issues. So I was looking at the time, not at the time.
Oh yeah, I was thinking, I was like, oh my God,
we'll have some time. Yeah. Ooh, what can we talk about? I mean, unless you guys want to drop any more questions, we can keep chatting.
Welcome.
We were very happy to do this. This is a lot of fun. I love talking to Katya about cosplay. Actually, something we haven't touched on at all. We sort of, we've talked about like mold making, but we haven't talked about special effects makeup. Which is a good one, and contact lenses. Those are two things we can.
Okay, you start with the scar makeup. I'll finish with contacts.
Great. Okay. So so for special effects makeup, stuff like blood and scars, there's a ton of different things you can use. For my Cassandra scars, I use rigid collodion, which is like this clear liquid which you get. It almost looks like clear nail polish, but don't use it for that. And then you like brush it on. So I brush it on my arm because that's where her scars are on my face. So what I do for that is I put on like a little bit of light brown eyeshadow, or depending on your skin tone, you might want to use something different. But basically whatever color a scar would be on your skin tone, use that color of like makeup of some kind, eyeshadow, and I just like color that line on my arm in light brown, and then I put the rigid collodion over it, and it creates this sort of film over the top of your skin, which starts to crackle and tighten a little bit. So it has the effect on where you would get a real scar. I'm looking at the scar on my hand. Where you would get a real scar, you would get like a change in the texture of your skin from the injury that hasn't healed fully. So that's what that creates, and it creates like a slight indent as well, which is very realistic. Really cool. But color it underneath so that you get also like you get discoloration with scars. So you wouldn't want to do that. There are other things you can do too. You can make prostheses from silicone and latex and apply them to your skin with Prozaid and then paint over them. Fake blood is a very good one. You don't always have to use actual fake blood. You can use like if it's on clothing, you can use paint. But you can like smear yourself.
Even like red lip liner. I just love to use that for scratches. It's just so easy. So they're not wounds that are too indented. They're just light scratches. Some eyeliner, boom.
Important note before Katya moves on to contact lenses is that whether it's Prozaid, whether it's rigid collodion, whether it's something else, anything that you're applying to your skin directly, make sure you have the correct remover for it, because you don't want to hurt yourself in the process of removing it from your skin. So like usually when you buy Prozaid in any like, online shop,
remover,
like any online shop or any physical shop that you go to, you'll be able to buy both of them together in the same.
They should technically come together anyway.
They always come together.
Exactly. I love doing that. And even like if you want to do old people makeup, like stretch your skin, apply some latex, dry it with a hair dryer, and then when you let go, it already creates those wrinkles. So it's a really quick and easy way, even like for burns and things. Contact lenses, oh gosh, contact lenses really can just, I feel it's not really make and break, but I feel like it really adds something, especially in photos. If you're doing like a photo shoot.
I think if it's a character with very distinctive eyes for some reason. Like I typically don't wear them. Like I don't wear them when I cosplay Aloy because
like quite a natural character.
And also because like so I had laser eye surgery and used to wear contact lenses before that, so I'm not like, I know how dangerous bad contact lenses can be, and I'm very cautious of it. So please, like again, health wise, don't buy cheap contact lenses. Like, it's not worth it. You only get one set of eyes.
Really be kind to your eyes, and even if you can go get your prescription from your prescribed doctor or people who just take care of your eyes, make sure you have that so you know what your base curve is and what your actual prescription is. You can get different lenses, but I stick with Pinky Paradise. I really like the quality of their lenses and their delivery and things, and TTDI do quite natural lenses. They're kind of like the Desio lenses, so they're more natural, so things where I just want a natural green eye color, I probably go for that one. That are really comfortable. But then again, if you put a contact lens in your eye and you find it's already hurting and stinging it, take it out
right away and wash your eye out. Have eye drops on hand. Have contact lens eye drops, and also like generic eye drops for when you've taken the contact lenses out to help with irritation. This is me giving my like
giving your past self advice.
Go do that. Like especially with colored lenses, don't wear them over the recommended allotted time. Exactly. Like really, really be careful with this. I would say like, yeah, like I the only time I've ever considered it was when I was thinking about cosplaying not from Critical Role, because she's obviously a goblin and has bright yellow eyes, and I was like, for that cosplay it feels like the eyes are sort of a very important part of it.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I haven't really done it outside of that.
There's different kind of, I think the more crazy the eye color, the more it will hurt on your eyes. I've tried the crazy, I've literally tried all the contacts out there, and just like I would do anything to make my eyes look exactly like the character. But there is always editing options. You can always edit your eyes, so don't be like, oh, I can't wear contact, I'm scared, or things like that. Like it's not an option if you don't want to do it. I personally love to do it. I think it really makes your eyes pop, but obviously be careful. Go with big brands that are out there, and you know, Unique So and Honey Color are another one, so you can go check those out as well. And they're more, don't get them like when they go on discount in a local store. Like you don't want to get this Halloween ones. They're really
absolutely not.
To the
also, I would say, sorry to be the stickler for health again, but like I feel very strongly about contact lenses and the fact that a lot of cosplayers don't really use them correctly.
They don't,
it's bad. But like if you are not someone who needs to go to an optician because they have like they need glasses and contact lenses, if you are thinking about wearing contact lenses for cosplay, I would recommend going to the optician and having an eye appointment, because there are actually certain conditions which mean that you cannot wear contact lenses. There's you can have astigmatism, which means that the shape of your eye is slightly different from the norm.
Or like the base curve, your curve is slightly more out there than the normal face.
And that's something that typically won't actually affect you and doesn't matter unless you need to wear contact lenses. And some people have astigmatism to such an extreme extent that they cannot wear contact lenses.
And they can only wear glasses. This is actually what I did before I wore contact lenses for cosplay. I went to my optician, and I had a session where they taught me how to put them in, and I actually bought contact lenses from my optician. So they actually do sell colored lenses. They're very natural, but that's how I started. And then once I got used to it and I found out what the brands that were safe for me I went from there. So you take it small steps. Don't just go in heavy with big ass sclera contact lenses.
Oh god, and don't wear sclera contact lenses because they're the worst.
They're terrifying. But
no, like with this,
know your limit.
Know what you're doing. Definitely,
just be careful out there. You take care of your eyeballs. They're essential.
And exactly like Well That Work just said, it's easy for photographers to change eye colors, even if you edit images and get them back from the photographers. There are even apps that do it on the iPhone. I want to cosplay Cora soon, and I don't want to wear blue lenses. I'm just going to get people to edit my eyes to look blue.
Exactly. You can there's even like filters on Instagram that let you do it. So it's really like so easy nowadays. There's an app called, I think, Makeup Plus. Makes your eyes very, very natural colors. So if you ever want to change them before you post a photo, then there you go. Really easy.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, we've got like nearly 3 minutes left, so maybe we should wrap up and tell everyone again where we can find us. So I've been Izza. You can find me at Evil Clever Dog on Twitter and Instagram. I would say Instagram is more like cosplay focused specifically, but I post on both of them. And I'm currently working on this Tomb Raider build. I haven't even posted this on Instagram yet, so you guys
are exclusive, guys.
The sneak peek.
Exclusive.
Exclusive. So I'm working on that, and I'm also working on the Staff of Hermes from Assassin's Creed Odyssey. So I'll be posting some updates about those pretty soon. And like I said, I'm probably going to start on a Korra cosplay once I finish one of those, because I feel like 3 cosplays at the same time is very indulgent.
Like one at a time.
How about you?
I am Katya Fern on Instagram. That's KatyaFern. And I'm WonderCat Cosplay on Facebook. Twitter is also Katya Fern. I've just finished making my Headhunter Caitlin, which I've just posted. I will post more stuff on it. There might be some new Wonder Woman, that might be my next project. So hopefully that'll be some cool stuff. Maybe some Witcher might arrive. Who knows? But yes, that's all we have time for today. Oh yeah, thank you. Yeah.
I've just posted links in the chat because I realized like sometimes with spelling and stuff.
Yeah, people are like, wait, catch what?
I've posted links to our Instagrams in the chat.
And if you, hopefully we can do this again sometime, or we can actually meet you guys in person. Who knows? But I hope you have found this useful. And we look forward to seeing your lovely faces online.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us. Abdullah has said in the chat, like, lots of love and support from the community. Like, thank you so much. We love doing this so much, and we cannot wait to see like what kind of cosplays you guys are going to come up with. I'd love to see it. So yeah.
Exactly. Thank you. I'm quickly typing in. I'm so slow. There we go. Yeah, it's been great. And if you ever need to like check out other cosplayers that you have on Instagram, if you ever have any issues, then you can always send messages to other cosplayers or us if you have a question about your cosplays. But we are always here in the community.
Yeah.
Supporting. Yeah. Always here to support. Exactly. That's what we said. Be the positive light in this community and be that refreshing sunshine that we all need. So yeah.
Yeah. Thanks everyone.
Bye.